Hello guys, how are you? So today we are going to discover one of the maybe most known towns in Italy, Sorrento, as you wish. So we are in the southern part of Italy. The region is Campania. We are not too far from Naples, and it is located exactly here on this peninsula here. The actual name of this peninsula comes precisely from the town of Sorrento, Peninsula Sorrentina, Sorrentine Peninsula, meaning that it is really also one of the most important, I would say, towns of the area, and we are not too far from the Amalfi Coast, which is on this area here. Now, you would imagine, since we are on the sea, that there probably won't be too many hills, too many mountains. Well, it's quite the contrary here. Because the area is pretty volcanoes. Of course, I'm sure you've heard about Ercolano, Pompeii, and of course the Vesuvio volcano, which is situated here, so not too far. So in general, it is a very volcanic area. Most of the islands have also volcanic origin, apart from Capri here. And if you look at the layers here, you would see what I mean. Okay, you see, so these are actually mountains. The line of mountains, the chain of mountains that are located here are also called the Monti Lattari, and Sorrento is here. Okay, so I am going to show you something very interesting as well of the position of Sorrento, which is connected to what I've just told you. Okay, so this is the coast, this is the port of Sorrento, and you see all these mountains here. I mean, they're still mountains, but not too high, I would say. Still, you have the coast here, and here you have these cliffs. So, yes, it's really amazing, really. I mean, how populations in centuries have managed really to go and live in these places, because I'm sure it doesn't be easy for many centuries. The center of Sorrento is more or less here in this area here. So you see it is literally located on a natural cliff, basically on a natural terrace, which is almost 50 meters high. So yes, that's very impressive, I know. So we are going to start our little walk in Sorrento from the main square of Sorrento, which is Piazza Torquato Tasso here. Piazza Torquato Tasso takes the name from Torquato Tasso, who was one of the most important, one of the most famous poets in Italy, and he was born precisely in Sorrento, of course, and he lived in the 16th century, so they dedicated to him this big square. It's not a pedestrian square, so you see there are cars, you can drive there, but then here, and that's where we will go later, there is a very nice pedestrian area, while in this direction here there is Corso Italia, which is one of the main roads of the city of Sorrento. Okay, and then there, in that direction there is the port, okay, behind this little touristic train here. So then we can move on this side here to go to see a very interesting area. Actually, it is also called Valle dei Mulini, Valley of the Mills, water mills. Okay, you'll understand why in a second. So here we can see this Vallone, Valle dei Mulini, and we can see actually some buildings as well. Let's start from before these buildings. This area, which you can see on the map here, is really green, so it's a very natural area, I would say. Naturally originated about 35,000 years ago, after the eruption of the Phlegraean fields, Campi Flegrei, which is a very volcanic and dangerous area located not too far from Naples, so not from here. These brought a lot of material to deposit here, and also, as a consequence of that, quite a lot of water started to come from underground, basically. So there were so many natural water sources, basically. And in a much more recent period, around the 17th century, someone decided to start to use the force of this water, to use this water. So there's been few buildings that have been created here: water mills, sawmill, so a public wash house. The water mills were used mainly to grind the grains which was very useful because agriculture here was in the past very much developed, more than nowadays. Also, another interesting thing that you will see here is that there is a lot of natural rocks here. You can see it's very pretty rocky, the area here, even if you see a lot of green as well. The main rock that you will find here is tuffo, which is very typical of the area, and it has been extracted for sure for many years and used to build quite a lot of buildings in the town of Sorrento. Also, this area in the past, you see this is the valley, so you see it's very pretty big green area, but in the past it was even bigger. So this area was connected to the port in the past. The port of Sorrento is here thanks to a bridge. What happened is that at one point in modern times it has been decided to destroy that bridge, and do like the big square here, the main square, new roads, etc. This caused quite a lot of modification of this area here, especially from a natural point of view, I would say, climate point of view as well, even because what happened here is that, well, the green area of course became much smaller, but not only that, the climate really changed. Here you now have a sort of microclimate with an humidity which is more or less concentrated of 80%, so nobody can really live there anymore. But what happened, and that's really interesting, is that here, thanks to this microclimate, you'll have quite a few particular plants, maybe even tropical, which are also quite rare, so that's interesting. This is a church. You wouldn't think that because it doesn't look like a church. Really, this is actually a facade of a church. It is actually one of the most important and most monumental churches of Sorrento. It is the church dedicated to Sant'Antonino. It's pretty big inside, and the facade is in Romanesque style, but we'd have to think that there was initially a church here in the 9th century already, so pretty old, and the present building had been started in the 11th century, even if of course it has been changed throughout the centuries. We are inside the church. You see a very Baroque style actually, and that's because of course it has been modified quite a lot in the 17th century. But you don't see only decorations of the Baroque style, you see a lot of columns here, and actually these columns, quite a lot made of granite, date back to the ancient Roman times. So these have been brought here maybe from Roman villas, Roman temples, which were situated not too far from here, maybe even in Sorrento actually, because Sorrento was a very important center with the Romans as well. There's been a lot of populations who lived here. This precise spot where this church has been built had been chosen in the past because here were found the remains of Sant'Antonino, which is the saint that gives the name to the church even nowadays. So here we are in front of the Cathedral of Sorrento, which is dedicated to the two saints, not one but two, Saint Philip and Saint James. The facade is not actually that old. It has been redone in neo-Gothic style, so to speak, 19th century. You have 3 main entrances, but actually these columns here are pretty older. These are Romans and they were on ancient Roman temples, so that's really interesting. This church inside, you'll see it's also very Baroque, but it was built actually where there was a Greek temple. That was the first religious building, so to speak. The present building has been started already in the 10th century, and then in the 16th century there has been this big restoration in a very Baroque style. You see there are so many nice decorations here really. To reach the cathedral here, we went along this Corso Italia, which is one of the main roads. You saw quite a few car park, but it's actually most of the times I think a pretty pedestrian area, which is nice because you've seen there are many cafes, restaurants, nice shops, etc. So it's really super nice. And then here you have very nice smaller roads where you can walk, etc. An interesting thing connected to the church is that we didn't see the bell tower. It looks like and seems like the bell tower is actually here, more or less. I'm gonna show you in a second. A little bit further. So here, okay, here there is a church. If you walk here, you'll find it here. This structure here with actually some ancient columns here, probably Roman as well. You have this tower here, which is, it seems like it is actually the bell tower. So you would ask yourself, why on earth is the bell tower so far away from the church? Because usually bell tower is very close to the church. But that's maybe because of the history of the church, because it has been changed, modified so much that probably the structure of the church, the building on the church arrived towards this area as well in the past. Another thing I wanted to show you here is that you can really still see the Roman organization of the roads. So as all the Roman, also Sorrento had the typical Roman roads, cardo, decumano, cardo and decumanos, okay, in the 2 directions. And here you can still see how the roads are still organized according to that idea. Also here, there is this tiny road here, Via Fuoro, which takes the names very likely from Foro, so Foro Romano, meaning that was possibly, there was the era where there was possibly the Roman Forum, okay. And also it seems like maybe, these are all hypotheses of course, but here, between the present Via Torquato Tasso here, this road here, Via Cesario and Via Fuoro, there was the crossing of the main roads, the Cardo and the Decumano. So these walls here are actually part of the ancient walls of the city of Sorrento. The city of Sorrento had walls even with the Greeks, so the very lower part here probably dates back to the Greek period. So if you think about that, it's really old, it's really impressive they're still there. The structure of the Greek walls had been then used and enlarged by the Romans, and then another part, which is possibly this part here, had been then done mainly in the 16th century. The city of Sorrento, due to its position, very strategical along the sea, not too far from Naples, had always been in a strategic but also dangerous position, meaning that it's always at the need to protect itself from the enemies, hence the presence of the walls even in relatively modern times. This part here is the Bastione di Parsano, okay, so which is one part of the ancient wall. Unfortunately, there are not so many parts that have arrived till nowadays, but this is nice because actually sometimes I think you can even walk above these walls here. You can walk along the walls here. This is the outside part, the part of the outside, basically. And then here you still have walls, you see. Okay, just tiny parts, unfortunately, but yes, it's still something. Okay, very nice. The last thing I wanted to show you of Sorrento are the remains of Roman villas. It's actually pretty crazy in the position where they were, really. One is here, where there is also this natural swimming pool, Regina Giovanna, but the remains were of the Villa Pollio Felice, who was noble from Rome. Okay, so if we go here, yes, apart from the crazy spectacular view that you have, of course, you'll see the remains. Okay, so this is actually pretty crazy. You see, these were all the walls of the villa, and yes, it has been built on the rocks. I know, it's just crazy. It's so nice. I mean, the position where it was on the Punta di Sorrento, so really at the end of the peninsula. It's really crazy. And yes, nowadays, unfortunately, there are just the remains, so you can barely see anything, really. You see, there are just the base of the walls, really, but you can still recognize the structure, which is actually pretty amazing, to be honest. These are all the rocks, natural rocks, and then here you can't see it very well, but this is this natural swimming pool I was talking to you about. So that's also very nice, and quite likely it was used by Pollio for its villa. There was probably an inferior structure like that. The other one is located more or less in front of the port. Was located actually, because there are just remains as well. Where is it? Here. Yes, I'm looking for this because it's actually not too far from this one, from Bagni Salvatore. Okay, so I think that if we go here, we can have a little look. Well, apart from the fact that here you really realize how high is this cliff. I mean, just crazy. I mean, this is just mainly natural rock. Of course, there has been also some cement here that has been put to sustain all the buildings, but yes, this is really crazy. Here you see an arch here. This is not modern. This seems to be one of the remains of another Roman villa which was located here. This was the villa of Agrippa Posto, and it was built in the 1st century BC, so really old. The fact that there were villas in the Roman times along these very nice towns here is something that you would see in all the small towns in this area here. So last but not least, what are the typical products that you can taste in Sorrento? Of course, limoncello, typical citrus fruit, not only lemon. Cheeses, mozzarella, stracciatella, different type of cheeses. Wine, of course, small production of wine as well. Apart from the food and drinks, very nice lace and woodworks. That's also typical from here. So I leave you with this super nice view of Sorrento. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know which town you would like to see next. Remember to drop a like, subscribe to my channel, and I see you guys next time. Ciao ciao.